Welcome to our deep dive into January 28th. Ever just think about all the things that happen on one single date throughout history.
It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's wild, like a weird time travel adventure, you know?
Definitely.
Today, we've got monarchs, scientific discoveries, some cool tech stuff, and of course, we gotta have some birthdays, right?
Of course. Birthdays are the best.
Totally. But before we jump in, what's the overall mission here? What are we hoping to learn by going on this deep dive into January 28th?
Well, for me, it's about seeing the connections, how seemingly random events on this one date can actually reveal these broader historical trends. We'll be jumping between centuries, but I think it's those hidden threads, the ripple effects that connect these events that make this so interesting.
I like it, the ripple effects. Okay,
Yeah.
let's fire up the time machine. First stop, 1547, England. We're right in the middle of the Tudor dynasty, and a 9-year-old boy, Edward VI, is crowned king.
Wow, 9 years old. That's
I know, right?
pretty young to be king.
Can you imagine the weight of that crown on such tiny little shoulders?
Yeah, and it wasn't just any crown either. He inherited a kingdom that was, let's just say things were a bit messy thanks to his dad, Henry VIII.
Ah, yes, Henry VIII, the king with the, shall we say, complicated love life.
Exactly. And his break from the Catholic Church. Well, that had huge consequences. England was officially a Protestant nation, but this whole shift in religious power was far from settled.
So little Edward wasn't just playing with toy soldiers. He was thrust into this religious and political whirlwind. How did he even handle that kind of pressure at 9 years old?
Well, Edward was a devout Protestant, so he and his advisors really pushed for these further religious reforms. They introduced a new prayer book, dissolved monasteries, and that stirred up, well, you can imagine.
Yeah, not everyone was happy about that.
No, not at all. There were rebellions, uprisings. The transition to Protestantism, as you can see, was anything but smooth.
It's kind of crazy how much turmoil got packed into his short reign. You know, it really makes you think about all the stuff that's hidden behind those simple dates in history books.
Absolutely. And speaking of hidden complexities, let's fast forward to 1613. Galilei, the man, the myth, the legend, discovers Neptune.
Oh yeah, Galileo, the guy who basically said, hey, Earth isn't the center of the universe.
Right. He got in a lot of trouble for that. But anyway, he was observing the night sky, doing his thing with his telescope, and initially thought Neptune was just a fixed star.
Oh, I see.
But then later observations, they revealed that it was moving, confirming it as a planet.
I mean, it seems like a simple astronomical observation, but you're saying there's more to it?
Way more.
Yeah.
One, it expanded our understanding of the solar system. It was like, boom, suddenly the universe got a little bigger, right?
Right.
But more importantly, this discovery, along with his other work, contributed to this major shift in scientific thinking. It helped challenge that long-held geocentric view.
Meaning we're not the center of everything.
Exactly. So instead of everything revolving around us, we start to understand that we're just one little planet orbiting the sun.
That must have been mind-blowing for people back then.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
Galileo's work, including this Neptune observation, helped kickstart the scientific revolution. It was a period of massive change, intellectually and in terms of discovery. It's like, bam, everything's different now.
So we've gone from a kid king dealing with religious chaos to a groundbreaking astronomer who basically rewrites how we see the universe. Now let's bring it back down to Earth. Literally, January 28th, 1807. This date marks the first gaslit street in London.
London.
Yep, London. I bet it was quite the sight.
It was. It's Pall Mall, a pretty famous street in London that first got lit up with gaslight.
Gaslight, huh? So like no more stumbling around in the dark, tripping over cobblestones, all that.
Exactly. It was a game changer. Visibility at night went way up, making the streets safer, and people could stay out later. It really changed the rhythm of city life.
Sounds like they stepped into the future.
Yeah, in many ways they did. Gaslighting really did transform urban life. Commerce boomed, social life extended, even crime rates were impacted. Mm-hmm. It was this technological leap, one that paved the way for the electrified cities we have today.
It's amazing to think that something we totally take for granted now, like streetlights, was once a groundbreaking innovation. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so from light to sound. Our next stop takes us to the realm of communication. January 28th, 1871, the Franco-Prussian War ends with France's surrender. And then, boom, same date in 1878, the first full-time telephone operator, George W. Coy, gets hired. Talk about a day of big transitions.
It is pretty crazy when you think about it. Those two events, they seem totally separate, but they both reflect these huge changes happening in the world.
Yeah, like one is a war ending and the other is, well, the start of something totally new, right?
Right. The Franco-Prussian War had huge geopolitical consequences. It led to Germany uniting, shifting the power in Europe.
And the telephone, I mean, that was a revolution. Like, think about it. Before that,
Telegraphs, letters, all that. It took forever to communicate over long distances.
so it was slow and limited.
Yeah. But then suddenly you have the telephone. It's instant communication over huge distances.
I know we take it for granted now, but back then, it must have felt like magic. Like, wait, I can hear your voice right now, even though you're miles away.
Exactly. Think about the impact on businesses, on families, on governments even.
It's like suddenly the world got a whole lot smaller.
It did. The way we interact with the world changed because of this one invention.
So from kings and planets to gaslit streets and the birth of the telephone, January 28th is full of surprises.
Really is.
But buckle up, because next we're going to zoom into the 20th century.
The 20th century.
Yep, where we're going to encounter the U.S. Coast Guard and, wait for it, a certain mouse that changed the world of animation.
Oh, I can't wait. The 20th century was a wild ride. We'll see how this date reflects that, how the events of this one day still impact us today.
Okay, let's do it. More January 28th coming up.
I'm ready. Okay, so 20th century. Let's start with something that's, all about safety and security at sea. January 28th, 1915, the U.S. Coast Guard is established.
Okay, Coast Guard. I gotta admit, most of what I know comes from those, dramatic rescue shows on TV.
Yeah, those are pretty intense.
But what's the story behind the Coast Guard? Why were they created in the first place?
Well, before 1915, it was kind of a mess. You had all these different agencies responsible for different parts of maritime safety.
Yeah, so it's confusing.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, you had the Titanic sinking in 1912.
Right, that was a huge tragedy.
It was. And it really highlighted the need for, a more organized approach to maritime safety. So they combined the revenue cutter service and the life-saving service, bringing all that expertise together.
So they're not just about, jumping out of helicopters and saving people from sinking boats?
Nope, not at all. They do a ton of stuff. Search and rescue, enforcing maritime law, protecting marine resources, making sure ports are secure. They're kind of like the guardians of our coastlines and waterways,
That's pretty impressive. It's like they're always there, making sure things run smoothly, keeping people safe.
Exactly.
Okay, from keeping people safe to, entertaining them. January 28th, 1920, a young Walt Disney starts his career, making a whopping $20 a week.
Wow, $20 a week.
I know, right? Can you imagine? But hey, everyone starts somewhere. And Disney, he became a legend.
He did. It's hard to imagine, entertainment without him. He basically started from nothing and created this whole world of animation storytelling. He became a cultural icon, really.
It's such a classic story, right? The underdog who faces rejection but never gives up.
Totally. And he had his fair share of rejection early on, but he kept going, believing in his vision.
And look what he achieved. Mickey Mouse, Snow White, all these characters that just captured everyone's imagination.
He revolutionized animation, the techniques he used, the way he told stories. It's just connected with people on such a deep level, across cultures, across generations.
It's amazing how those stories, those characters, they still resonate with people today.
They really do. It's like they're timeless.
Okay, from animated mice to snowy slopes. Our January 28th time machine takes us to Vermont in 1938. We're talking about the first ski tow.
Ah, the ski tow.
Yeah, it might seem like a simple invention, but I bet it changed skiing forever.
It did.
Yeah.
Before the ski tow.
You had to hike up the mountain every time you wanted to go down.
Pretty much. It was a lot of work. Not very fun either.
I can imagine. Talk about a workout.
Right. So as ski tow comes along, and suddenly skiing becomes way more accessible. You could spend more time actually skiing, less time huffing and puffing up the hill.
And that probably led to more people trying it out.
Exactly. It helped make skiing a popular recreational activity, something that more people could enjoy.
Okay, hold on tight, because our next stop is going to be out of this world. 1960, scientists bounce a photograph off the moon.
A photograph off the moon.
Yeah. I know, it sounds crazy, right? But it's true. They essentially used the moon as a giant mirror.
Wow. So it's not like they had some special, moon-proof camera or something.
Nope. It was all about radio waves, bouncing them off the lunar surface.
That's amazing. What was the point of doing that?
It was a demonstration, really, showcasing how far radio technology had come. Plus, they learned stuff about the moon's surface, how it reflects signals.
So it was a technological feat and a scientific experiment all rolled into one.
Exactly. I mean, it paved the way for future moon missions, even advancements in radio astronomy.
That's incredible. It really shows how human ingenuity can, literally reach for the stars.
It does, doesn't it? From a simple ski tow to bouncing signals off the moon, it's all about pushing the boundaries, exploring what's possible.
Definitely. Okay, you ready for our birthday bonanza?
Hit me with it.
January 28th is a big day for birthdays. We've got actors, musicians, some boy band, heartthrobs, the whole shebang.
Okay, let's celebrate.
All right, first up, we've got Ariel Winter. She played Alex Dunphy on Modern Family, turning 27 today.
Modern Family. Such a great show. I feel like I watched her grow up on screen.
It's funny how you get attached to those TV families,
You do.
But yeah, she was fantastic on that show. It was such a refreshing take on family dynamics.
And it tackled some pretty important issues, too.
It did, and it did it with humor and heart. It was a special show.
Okay, next up, we've got Elijah Wood, Frodo Baggins himself, turning 44 today.
Oh, Frodo. He was amazing in those Lord of the Rings films.
They were epic. I mean, the whole world was obsessed with those movies.
He were, and Wood's performance was captivating. He really brought Frodo to life.
He did. It's like you really believed he was this hobbit going on this incredible journey.
Exactly. And the movies themselves, they reminded everyone of the power of fantasy storytelling. They transport you to another world.
Okay, get ready for some nostalgia. It's boy band time. Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys turns 45 today, and Joey Fatone Jr. from NSYNC is hitting the big 4-8.
Wow, 45 and 48. Time flies.
I know, right? It feels like just yesterday I was rocking out to their music.
The late 90s, early 2000s, it was the era of boy bands. They were everywhere.
They were, and they had such dedicated fans.
They did. It was a phenomenon, really.
What do you think it was about boy bands that grabbed everyone's attention?
I think it was a bunch of things. The music was catchy, the dance moves were cool, and they had this wholesome image that appealed to a younger audience.
Plus, it was about being part of something, like you and your friends all loving the same band going to concerts together.
Exactly. It was a shared experience.
All right, moving on to a singer-songwriter with an amazing voice and lyrics that, they just hit you in the feels. Sarah McLachlan turns 57 today.
Oh, I love Sarah McLachlan. Her music is so beautiful, so emotional.
It is. She's got this way of expressing the depths of human experience, love, loss, hope, all of it.
Her songs, they've become anthems, haven't they?
They have. For heartbreak, for healing, for finding yourself.
And she's also a big advocate for animal welfare.
Right. Those ASPCA commercials with her song Angel playing,
Yeah.
They were heartbreaking.
They were, but they also raised a lot of awareness about animal cruelty.
They did. It shows how powerful music can be, and how artists can use their platform to make a difference.
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least, we've got two actors who represent the golden age of television. Susan Howard, Donna Krebs from Dallas, turns 81 today. And Alan Alda, Hawkeye Pierce from MASH, is celebrating his 89th birthday.
Wow. Dallas and MASH, those were iconic shows.
They were. Dallas was all about wealth, power, family drama. It was huge in the 80s. And MASH, set during the Korean War, it used humor and satire to deal with some pretty serious topics.
War, loss, resilience. They both tackled tough subjects, but they also entertained millions of people.
They did, and they became part of television history.
It's amazing, how a single date, January 28th, can hold so much. So many different stories, so many different lives.
It really highlights how, history isn't just a straight line. It's more like this tangled web with everything connected in some way, from kings to cartoons, from ski-toes to bouncing pictures off the moon. It's all part of this bigger story,
All right, before we wrap up our January 28th adventure, we got to talk about the more, shall we say, unusual holidays.
Yeah, those quirky national days.
Yeah, they're kind of fun, right? They add a little something extra to the calendar.
I think so. They reflect our, diverse interests, our culture. It's a chance to just be a little silly.
Exactly. So alongside all the historical stuff we've talked about, January 28th is also Data Privacy Day.
Data Privacy Day.
Yeah, which, in this digital age, it's a pretty big deal.
It is. I mean, our lives are so intertwined with technology now.
Totally. So Data Privacy Day is a good reminder to be aware of our digital footprint, to think about how our data is being used.
And to advocate for policies that protect our privacy.
Exactly. Okay, now for something a little more lighthearted, it's also National Gift of the Ladybug Day.
Ah, ladybugs.
I know, right? Always a good excuse to spread a little luck and cheer.
They're seen as symbols of good fortune in a lot of cultures. So gifting a ladybug, even if it's little figurine or something, it's a sweet gesture.
It is. And of course, no celebration is complete without food. January 28th is also National Blueberry Pancake Day.
Pancakes.
Blueberry pancakes. I'm already picturing a big stack of fluffy pancakes piled high with blueberries.
Sounds delicious.
Doesn't it? And it's not just about the taste. They're good for you too.
Oh yeah, blueberries are packed with antioxidants.
So it's a win-win. A delicious, aindy, nutritious way to start the day. And last but not least, for all you music lovers out there, it's National Kazoo Day.
The kazoo.
The kazoo. I can practically hear the kazoo bands tuning up as we speak.
I love it. The kazoo is such a fun instrument. It's like anyone can play it. You don't need any special skills.
Exactly. It's all about being spontaneous, being creative, having a good time.
Exactly.
So there you have it, our deep dive into January 28th. It's been quite the journey. We covered centuries, explored discoveries, celebrated birthdays, and even unearthed some, interesting national days.
It's amazing how much history can be packed into one single date,
It really is. What stands out to you the most from our January 28th exploration?
For me, it's just realizing that history is more than just dates and facts in a textbook. You know? It's stories. It's the stories of kings and scientists, musicians, and everyday people. All these events, big and small, they all come together to shape the world we live in.
And it makes you think, right? What other hidden gems, what other surprising connections are out there just waiting to be discovered?
Exactly. Maybe you'll be inspired to pick a random date and just see what you can find. You never know what you might learn.
Yeah.
Because history, it's all around us. It's just waiting to be explored.